Yemeni media reports say a new group of 200 U.S. Marines has arrived in the port city of Mukalla. According to the reports, Yemen's southern coast is now under the control of U.S. troops who are deployed to the region under the pretext of battling al-Qaeda militants. On Friday, the U.S. acknowledged for the first time ever that it has deployed troops to Yemen. Riyadh has admitted that the U.S. is assisting the Saudis in their war on the country. The move has sparked anger among Yemenis, calling it a cover-up to disintegrate the nation. To get some perspective, we're joined by Derek Ford, scholar and professor. Derek, good to have you here with us. Now, I want to put the very first question like this. What are these people doing there, these 200 U.S. Marines?
That's a good question. I think that, and it's a complicated answer because on the one hand, Saudi Arabia has absolutely no sort of existential conflict with al-Qaeda. In fact, there's a long, detailed, and documented history of cooperation between the two entities. Of course, stemming back to the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Towers and the Pentagon in 2001. So, the idea that Saudi Arabia has liberated this port city from al-Qaeda is somewhat absurd. And also, I think it's important to note that there wasn't really a battle. That al-Qaeda was allowed, there were negotiations that took place, and they were allowed to retreat and regroup. So, under like 36 people actually died during this process. And so I think that the reason why the United States is there has to do, one, with as a sort of publicity front for popular consumption. And I think it's cynical to say that, but that's ultimately the reality, that the United States has been under a lot of pressure to explain and account for its ties, very close ties to the Saudi government, especially with the recent push to declassify the 28 pages of the congressional inquiry on 9/11, which documents and evidences the Saudi government's cooperation with al-Qaeda and their role in the attacks. And so I think that the United States sort of has to be seen as doing something against al-Qaeda. And also, in terms of the larger geopolitical context, it is perfectly in line with the United States' overall agenda to have more forces in West Asia and very close to North Africa.
And Derek, what can you tell us about the timing of this dispatch of Marines over there?
Well, it definitely has a lot to do with ongoing, peace talks, or because the Saudi government, the war on Yemen has been a complete and utter failure, and Saudi Arabia is, as I think, looking for a way out and looking for a way to strengthen its hand for any negotiated withdrawals or negotiated cessation of conflict. And I think that this, again, as a sort of PR move, puts the Saudi government and its allies, like the United States, on something of a better footing for that. And also, as I said, it definitely has to do with the fact that the United States has come under a lot of scrutiny for its relationship to Saudi Arabia over the last couple of weeks.
And very briefly, the Saudi-led delegation participating in the peace talks in Kuwait, they were essentially claiming that the reason for their departure is there is no progress on the ground, or at least on the negotiating table. But this is at a time when a couple of days ago, or at least a week ago, we heard the UN envoy to the Yemeni talks saying that he was quite happy and he was hailing at least some bit of progress being made within the negotiations going on. Now, is there anything missing here, or is there a contradiction in positions and views?
I think that there is a contradiction, but ultimately, Saudi Arabia has, over the last couple of years, unleashed a pretty fierce anti-Iranian agenda, and has declared its sort of intentions to not just be a sort of client state of the United States, serving the U.S.'s interest in the region, but to emerge as its own power and real force. So, for example, that is why Saudi Arabia did not explicitly seek U.S. approval before launching this war on Yemen. And so I think that ultimately Saudi Arabia wants to continue to pursue that agenda, and that this conflict has been a real obstacle in that pursuit. And so they're trying to negotiate as best as they can to come out on top.